Hi everybody, I'm Brian. Let's go do some woodworking. So I want to talk about a basic toolkit. What are the things that you need to start doing some fine woodworking? And I've assembled this on the table because I think you can get away with this and pretty much start making things, a lot of different things. You might notice that on the table here, a lot of what's on the table are measuring and marking tools. And measuring and marking is a big part of woodworking. Being accurate, being good and square, being straight, being flat. So if you're going to spend money somewhere on tools, spend money on good measuring and marking tools. Get a good square, get good rulers, good straight edges. Those are the important things. You can get a $5 chisel and it'll do the same thing a $100 chisel will, but you can't buy a cheapo ruler and think that you're going to get accuracy out of it. So make sure you get good rulers and good squares. Up here, these are called winding sticks. These are good for sighting boards and making sure that there's no twist in them. That's what those are for. You can make these yourself out of wood, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and that works perfectly well. These are marking gauges, and these are very handy for laying out dovetails, for laying out tenons, laying out any number of things. They have a little circular cutter on the bottom that scores the wood at a specific distance from the fence. And I have two different ones here. You only need one. Those are great tools to have. Over here I have hand planes that are made of wood. You can make these yourself. We did that in the previous video. This jointing plane is made exactly the same way as this plane. There is no difference. It's just a little longer. How much longer is it? This one just happens to be 19 inches long. That's sort of unimportant. You make it with what feels comfortable and what you have on hand. You just want it a little longer, and you want to make it out of hardwood, definitely. The little metal planes here, that's an apron plane, a Veritas apron plane. That one I use much more often than this one. This is a block plane with an adjustable mouth. They're a little more money, they're nice, and they sort of act more like a smoothing plane, but definitely the low angle is necessary for doing end grain and trimming boards. When it comes to handsaws, there's lots and lots of different handsaws you can get. I just recommend one good Japanese saw, a good dozuki saw is fine, and one good dovetail saw. If you have those two things, you have everything you need. That's an Adria dovetail saw, which I've been real happy with. Had that for many years. It's a great little saw. The only other saw I think that's really important to have is a little coping saw. And you're going to use this for knocking out the waste material when you make dovetails. So that's a handy one to have. No workshop is complete without a card scraper. You have to use a card scraper a lot. Whether you're making furniture, whether you're making instruments, it really doesn't matter. Card scraper is a very important tool. And you don't have to have a burnisher. This is a burnisher for rolling an edge onto it. But they're nice to have. They're made of a very, very hard steel, and they do a good job of burnishing a card scraper and rolling an edge on it. And I'll be doing a video in the future about how to sharpen things, how to sharpen a card scraper, all that sort of stuff. But you can burnish an edge with the back of a chisel. You can do that. You can do it with a screwdriver. You can do it with other things. You don't have to have the burnisher, but it is a nice tool to have. Now, in terms of chisels, you don't need the big 25 chisel set. They're very expensive, and you're going to find that most of those chisels you never use. I like to have one really big long chisel, and this is one that I picked up at a flea market for a couple of bucks, and it had no handle, so I made a handle for it, and that's been a great chisel. I think it's 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches, and I use that one quite a lot. And then just as a little set, all you really need is quarter, half, and 1. And the other sizes are nice to have and everything, but you can get away with just having those 3 chisels and pretty much do everything you need to do. The other thing that I find really handy in the shop, and a lot of people don't use them, but I find they're very handy, are files. And this is a file for wood. I believe it's called a Whizcut file. And I put a piece of tape on the end of it, which acts as a safe area so I can't scratch surfaces. So it's really good for making things flush. And I also file a safe edge onto them. So these normally have both edges with teeth, whereas I go to the grinder and I burn an edge flat. So if I need to put that against a surface, I won't ruin it. So files are good to have as well, and they're inexpensive. Make your own handle. That's what that is. That's a homemade handle on that. This is a really nice little bevel gauge, and I like to have that. This is a nice one. It's made by Veritas. You can see it's nice and beat up. It's been in my tool bag for a long time. It's got all the different angles and, of course, a bevel gauge to go with it. An awl is important for marking the center of holes that you're going to drill. And I use a draw knife quite a lot in the shop for doing round objects, for carving things. You can be very aggressive with a draw knife, or you can do really fine small stuff. You can also use a Spokeshave. I like to have a draw knife. I think it's a very versatile tool. I also have my OLFA knife, which I really like them. I know that that's a disposable blade, and that's maybe not the best thing in the world, but they are a very good little knife, and you can do a lot with them. You can scribe tenons, dovetails, when you're doing inlay, putting butterflies in slabs, all that kind of stuff. I do that with an OLFA knife. Over here with the hand planes, you can see that I have what's called a plane hammer. So this has a brass face, so you can hit the steel on the blade. That's how you adjust the plane. And I made this little tool. And all that is a chunk of a file that I've ground flat to the proper size to be able to undo the cap screw on a hand plane. I'll just show you how that works. You take the wedge out, there's the blade, and these all have a little screw in there, and so that's what that is. It's just to loosen that off when you need to, and do your sharpening and pop it back on again. So that's a tool you can make yourself. You don't have to buy that one. And that's it. I think if you have a set of what's on the table here, and even a little bit less, I have duplicates, I have a couple of rulers, you could have less than that, that would be fine. But as I say, you can pretty much do what you need to do with this. And it's a compass, that's a good one to have. And you're good to go. The only other thing that, of course, you need, apart from these tools that you use, is to have some sharpening stones. Have a 1000 grit and an 8000 grit sharpening stone, and you can keep everything sharp, and you're ready to start doing some woodworking.